Radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. And it is MGoBlog Roundtable time. And as some weeks, it's like, okay, we got a few things to talk about. This week, we got a lot to talk about. So let's dive right in first with the pleasantries. Brian Cook, I mean, you got to be doing well this week, man. Come on.
I will go one farther than that. I am doing very well.
I mean, I see a smile.
Yeah.
I see some rosy cheeks.
Did you? Well, the rosy cheeks are because I just dropped my kids off in the bus and it's frigid this morning. So
Okay. Yeah. Brian is happy. Like, wow. Look at that. And the book is out. I know the book, by the way, fellas, I gotta thank you. The book is fantastic. It is fantastic. It's a great job. I can't tell you enough. You guys did an amazing job. So I'm sure you've heard it a ton. Let me add my voice to the plethora of voices I'm sure you guys have already heard. Amazing job that you guys did sort of capturing that era of championship football at Michigan. Just amazing job. So
yeah, let me add to that. I mean, it's phenomenal the amount of work that Brian and Seth in particular and Alejandro did is remarkable, and it's the best I've ever seen of this sort of book. I mean, this sort of book is been done other times, and the construct of it isn't completely unique, but the execution of it is better than anything I've ever seen. So congrats, guys.
yeah, great job, fellas. Yeah. So you are great at what you do, but I think you know that. So.
Thank you. MGoBlog.com/Victors if anyone like to get them, or they're on the shelves at Underground Printing, and they will soon be at Schuler's Books. Skylar, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Well, it used to be Nicola's.
There you go. All right. And so, Craig Ross, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I was thinking about how soft Ohio State is, and then I realized that it's very windy in my basement this morning. And so if I do a crappy job today, or even crappier than usual, it's probably because of the breeze down here. And it isn't just sort of a subjective thing. What other school puts "the" in front of their name? Does Harvard do that? Yale? Anyone call them the Yale University? The Stanford University? Even the Oberlin University? No one does that. Only one school does that, and it's because there's, I don't know. It's like my brother and I used to play on this golf course. It was terrible. It was like they had a junkyard on it, and it was flat, and it was, the greens were all gouged up. And we played it because that sort of fit our golf games. But but we always just put "the" in front of the course name to make it sound a little more imposing. Also, who goes around their campus and crosses out all the letter of their rival? I mean, talk about lame and weak. And now they got Gus Johnson calling them the world famous Ohio State University. Wouldn't you, if you were Ohio State, say, Gus, don't do that because you make us look like douches? So in any event, they're soft. Yeah, they had some snow flurries, 121. They had some wind. Connor Stallions, of course, they're weak. And my advice to them is, change.
Seth Fisher, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. I'm feeling great. I know who I am. I know what I'm good at and what I'm not. And I think that you can perform much better when you know who you are and what you are good at and what you are not.
Good point.
Instead of trying to be something that you are not, or that other people tell you that you need to be. I don't know why I am giving this life advice to anyone.
Wow, it's like
but
now we can go date again, Seth. Well done.
Oh, Michigan fans have been able to date for a long time, but I don't know how I feel a little sorry for Ryan Day. I really, I know everyone's had their little. I feel sorry for Ryan Day, but here I really do. I think that he's probably a good coach. I think he'd probably be great in the NFL or somewhere where he could just, go and be like the pro team, right? Like we hire professionals, we act like professionals, we don't deal with all the college crap. We're just we're gonna pay the guys what they're worth, and we're gonna go out there and they're professionals. Because Jeremiah Smith's already professional. There's no, that's what the guy is. But they can't play that way. He has to be Woody Hayes as well.
The problem with Ohio State right now is they're not paying the guys what they're worth. Because to be the .1 Ohio State Buckeyes, they need to score 10 more points.
Good point.
Where is the refund? You got to give that money back, Jack Sawyer. It ain't yours. You didn't earn it.
He earned it. He got that interception. Yeah.
Jack's didn't keep the flag.
And he protected the flag.
Did
Did you see what they did with the flag?
Oh, well, they haven't. They put up the previous one, so this was just they haven't put it up yet.
Yeah,
that was the one from the 22 game that Alejandro tweeted out yesterday.
Yeah,
and they're gonna put the other one up because, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's I guess I don't feel sorry for Ryan Day. You had how many opportunities to fix this? You get paid $10 million a year. I mean, some people just aren't cut out for certain jobs. I just don't think he's cut out.
Okay, but if someone offered you the head coaching job at Ohio State, do you say oh no, I'm not good? No coach in football.
Well, if someone offered me the head coaching job at Ohio State, I would take it and I would drive their program into the ground.
Right.
And then when they fired me, I would be like, "Go Blue, peace out."
Right. And I would be, and he's been paid handsomely. He's been paid handsomely for it. I mean, there are worse things than you coached at Ohio State for however many years, and you're going to leave $60 or $70 million richer. I mean, okay.
And his beard didn't even go gray.
Right. He'll be okay. But in it, he's going to have to face the reality that, you know what? It really wasn't everyone else. It really was me. I couldn't quite get it done. And hey, there are worse things than being you couldn't figure out tactically. Can't really run at Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Seems like an easy thing. Seems like a pretty simple thing to figure out. He couldn't quite figure it out now.
Okay, can I want to interject there with my little footballness here because Michigan was asking them to do that. Right?
I know
they were playing two back, and they're like we're going to play an extra guy in the pass. So
I understand.
They had a hat for every hat inside.
And so here's the thing. All right. Yeah. Yes, they're. We talked about this. Oh, yeah. Listen, Michigan was going to play too high, and they're going to say we're going to stop the run with a light box. It's going to invite Ohio State to run the football because they're going to try to get Michigan to load the box so they can take shots. And Ryan Day and Chip Kelly want to show how tough they are. It's the perfect trap, and they're going to keep trying to do it. But see, this is the part where you got to play the game. And not the board. Play the game, and what the game is telling you is that the box is loaded. The board may be telling you it's loaded because by numbers, but the game is telling you these big old dudes, yeah, it's loaded. We can't run at these guys. We can't. We gotta do something different.
Yeah, they're not playing. They're not playing 5 in the box and 7 in the secondary because Grant and Graham are 2 people apiece.
Exactly.
So you're running into a 7-man box. You just don't know
it. Dude.
Well, the interesting thing about that is Wink pretty much said this in advance, didn't he? He said this, he said this in advance of the game. He said, this is what we're going to do. And because I think it was Alejandro reported it with Wink saying, oh, yeah, we're going to play too high and we're going to play light in the box. That's what we're doing. So, I mean, he said right from the get-go,
Well, that's not can't be a surprise because that's what Michigan's done against Ohio State the last 3 years.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. And perhaps that's why he was so comfortable saying that's what we're doing. But Ohio State actually passed the ball more than they have any game this year. And they actually, I have it at, when you look at the RPO where they ran and a scramble, they called 61% pass plays in this game, which is a pretty high percentage for them. But yeah, they couldn't run it, and they tried to run away from the tackles. They tried to run some wide stuff. Most of their stuff, in fact, is wide, but they didn't get anywhere with it. That's for sure.
Well, there are two pieces here. And as I'm looking at the defense, they were not all of us. And in fact, I was one of them early on in the season who was like, Wink is doing a lot of Wink stuff that's trying to prove that he's, smart. And there was an idea in a lot of people's heads, and I'm sure after looking at Ohio State's offensive game plan, that they thought there were going to be more opportunities when Wink tries to win the game with something smart, right? Where he tries to have his cool blitz or whatever. There's one play that they really just got him, right? One play he doesn't have an answer for the running back. And at first I thought it was a screen. It's not. It's just a pass play. And they're just like, thank you. And they take it. But you have to go back to what was Chip Kelly when he was, because this was a Chip Kelly offense. And what was Chip Kelly when he was just wrecking it at Oregon? It was very similar thought process to Urban Meyer when he was at his peak. They look and see where they get an extra guy by using the quarterback. And that could be as an RPO or that could be as a zone reader. And they had lots of bash and all sorts of those things in there. And by having the extra guy, you're going to be man to man. And that's what they're looking for. That's the point of the offense. This offense was broken by the Michigan's numbers thing, right? The Graham and Grant being extra guys. But that's their entire thought process. It's not like this was something they did when they went in to play Michigan. This is how that offense works.
Yeah. And then you get in the game and it's like, all right, we got to do something different. and they couldn't do anything different. And that's the thing. Can you make battlefield decisions? When your plan is blown up, can you make adjustments on the fly? And these dudes had nothing. And I thought when you see the 2-minute drill, okay, they're going to pivot based on what we just saw.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't. It's like, okay, wow. That's okay.
They get to the 2-minute drill and they can't get the pass off. Like at that point when Michigan can finally just rush the passer, every single time, and they were just mosh rushing. They were not
at the end of the half. I'm talking about the end of the half.
Oh, the end of the half, yeah.
Well, so the thing is that Howard has 5.3 yards an attempt and 2 picks. So it's not like their pass game was particularly efficient either. So, and when it came down to it, as I mentioned, that 45-second drive, like he couldn't get a single pass complete to anyone except like a running back for 1 yard. And if you go back and you look at the PFF pressure stats, he was pressured on half of his dropbacks, which is double the rate he was pressured the rest of the season. So like, even though they didn't get to Will Howard, they got to him enough to harass him and intimidate him into bad throws and just kind of get him off his game. And when push come to shove at the end of the game, there was no chance. It was like last year where McCord was able to get them a little bit of ways down the field attempt. So it comes back to blocking and tackling. Like Michigan had a lot of issues, but you can't say that they didn't do a better job in that department than Ohio State. I mean, they rushed for 177 yards to Ohio State's 80 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it just always comes back to that. Now, it shouldn't have come back to that. They should have kicked a couple field goals. They should have been able to put up more than 10 points. But like fundamentally, is Ryan Day going to catch up to Michigan in that department? Well, if it didn't happen this year, it's hard to project that happening down the road. Now, the only kind of question I've had is that over the last these 4 games, Michigan has had super elite defensive linemen. Right? They've had Aiden Hutchinson, they've had Mason Graham, they've had a bunch of other first, second, third round picks.
Stuart Grant, yeah.
There's just a ton of them, and that's what Michigan. This is like been kind of the difference for Michigan over the past 4 years is that they've had elite, super elite defensive lines. And like, is Michigan going to be able to continue that going forward? That's kind of my main concern. Because if you lose that advantage, you lose that ability to destroy their run game with minus one in the box, then you then have to play Ohio State like other teams play Ohio State, and we see how that goes. But other than that, like, this is the worst Michigan's offensive line is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the worst their quarterback situation is going to be. This is the worst their wide receiver situation is going to be. You know, you're seeing Michigan now recruit on a level that they haven't consistently recruited in a long time. There's a guy named Bud Davis on Twitter and Blue Sky who put out some charts of like where everybody is based on recruiting. And what he did is he prioritized positions that get high priority in the NFL draft, which is a pretty smart way to do it. And Michigan's in the top tier. Like, they're fifth. They're up there with Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas. And then there's a big drop off after Michigan. And that hasn't been the case in previous years. And if you look at Michigan's recruiting class, and if you go by the 24/7 average, like, Ohio State's at like 92.4 or something, and Michigan's at 92.2. So earlier this summer, when Michigan had 5 commits, everybody was like, oh, look, they can't recruit. That has been completely overturned by this late surge, by this Michigan, like, getting serious about NIL finally. And like, if this is how Ryan Day has been doing against Michigan with better recruiting, how does it work when you have approximately equal recruiting? So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because do you guys feel like if Ohio State goes out in the first or even second round of the playoff, that Ryan Day is done?
Well, it's hard to understand how that could be.
It's not if you've ever read anything by an Ohio State fan.
Right, I know, but he is like 66-10. Isn't that his record? Something like that.
Yeah, but they're ready to jump off a roof, man.
They can fire him now, and he'll still be top 5 Big Ten coaches of all time by record.
Right, and so to me, I don't. You know, I have a friend who I mentioned that the buyout is 37 or 38 million. He goes, it's chump change. And, I probably just live in a different world, but, you are going to have to, if you get rid of him, you are going to have to, you do have this sort of ignominy of firing a coach who has one of the best records in the history of college football and paying him $37 or $38 million for the honor of doing that.
Where's that money coming from?
And right. And,
it's coming from the players, right? That comes out of the player pool, right?
Right. And coming up with another XYZ dollars, because if you're a coach coming in and you just saw that the coach that went 66-10 was reviled and fired, it's that's something I would think about if I was coming in and taking the job.
But nobody's going to do that. They're going to be like $10 million in Ohio State resources. I could not possibly be as bad at Ryan Day at this.
Yeah, maybe that's right. I mean, maybe that's right. And
right.
I don't know, but I suspect a lot may depend on what happens in the playoffs. Heck, they could still win the national championship.
I mean, he's done. They've changed everything around him. He's changed all his coaches. They bought a roster, and he just lost to the worst Michigan team. I mean, it's the worst loss in the history of the rivalry. Ryan said it best. If you can't beat this year, and you got Urban Meyer saying this is the best roster he's seen in college football in a decade. That's how they talked this roster up before the season.
That's not true, though.
Yeah, it may not be true, but this
we played a Georgia team a few years ago.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
They were the Philadelphia Eagles.
I agree with you, Brian. And I said the same thing earlier in the season. I said, wow, you're an actual analyst. And you saw that team. But okay, this is what he's telling the Buckeye faithful, though. And the Buckeye brass. This is the best roster in 10 years. And here this Michigan team comes up with a former walk-on at quarterback, replaced all their offensive linemen. They can't really throw the football at all. And they come up and they beat you on your home field, and their 2 best players are out. How is this possible? How is this possible with all of these resources, all of these advantages? And we got the best roster in a decade. I just don't know how you understand. Sometimes the irrational nature of a Buckeye is we can't fathom it. We can't understand it. But now this one I can actually understand. Like I get how they are like, this doesn't make much sense that we're paying this guy $10 million a year.
Well, I mean, if you're wondering when Ohio State is going to run out of excuses, I got news for you. But there are people out there saying that, they like Michigan fans are saying they hope Ohio State goes far in the playoffs and they have to keep Ryan Day. I'm like, no. That's not what we should be. They have Ross Bjork at AD. This is the guy who, he hired Ross Diebler because of 3-point percentage last year as his basketball coach. Look how that's going. They hired, this is a guy who gave Jimbo Fisher that ridiculous contract to Texas A&M. You don't want to give that guy a shot at this coaching market? As a Michigan fan, you don't want to see what happens when he has to come up with a coach, and what happens to this roster when everyone's trying to recruit, right? You have to get your portal guys now, right? This is the week to recruit your portal guys, and this is the week, and you just finished the recruiting class, right? And now you want to have that guy go and find a new coach, broom all the staff that they have that these guys are committed to, start all over in recruiting. I mean, there's potential here with all of Ohio State's resources for like a period of 6 and 6 seasons.
See, but you already
they could do it.
But why even risk it when you know you got this guy? Like, you got it. I would rather stick with him. And the law of averages says he'll get a win every night. Like you have to. He'll win occasionally.
What if Ohio State never wins the game again? What if we're in like year 4 of 4,000?
I'll take it. I guess my point is he does not have the fortitude to win this game regularly. He has shown it. And so I would rather keep that than having Ross Bjork luck up and fall into the right hire. Because I think to your point, he's shown that this dude just doesn't really know what he's doing. And he probably will get it wrong. But you can roll the dice and get it right. So why not just the guy they have?
I mean, it's a tough call because you like chaos and firing guys and there's not really a guy out there who seems like a slam dunk either. It's not like you're going to go hire Urban Meyer this time around.
Or they could hire Urban Meyer.
Well, yeah, they could hire Urban Meyer. So yeah, I see both sides of that argument. Like, let's keep the guy around, knock him around some more, but you're only going to get to knock him around one more time, right? Like this, unless he wins next year, which is like they're going to have a ton of roster turnover, right? Because they're going to lose that whole defensive line. They're going to lose their starting quarterback. They're going to lose Egbuka. They're going to lose their running backs. They're going to have to come up with a lot of dudes in the portal, and it might be a bit of a transition season for them. I mean, Ohio State transition seasons, look like, oh, we're 10-2 instead of 12-0. But, I wouldn't necessarily like the spread's not going to be as big next year. I'll tell you that.
I mean, they're still going to have, a quarterback, probably, one of these 5 stars that are on their roster coming up, right? Throwing to Jeremiah Smith. And who are we covering him with? Shamari Earls? Like, what's our, we could have a true freshman out there against that guy next year. So, I mean, there's absolutely an opportunity for Ryan Day if he ever learned how to be himself. He's not allowed to be himself at that school. He's not allowed to throw to Jeremiah Smith. He has to be tough.
No, I mean, I don't think that's the case. I just think that he's, what Jim Harbaugh said about him deeply wounded him, and he spends every day of his life trying to prove that it's not true. It only proves that it is true. He's like locked in some sort of Twilight Zone episode.
I love this Brian. I love the happy Brian.
Happy
Brian is back.
What are you talking about?
The happy giddy Brian.
I'm just making some observations about Ryan Day's personality and character.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. You're spot on. Listen. He is his insecurities play out over the course of the game. They do.
I just love the fact that, you know, most football rivalries, it's like, oh man, this guy can't coach the offensive line. Like, we never have a good offensive line. In Michigan, Ohio State's like, this guy is morally inferior. and like, it's not just, it's like everybody in the rivalry is saying it. Like, all the Ohio State fans are like, this guy, I mean, he's just, oh my God. And Michigan fans are like, I mean, they're not wrong. Oh, look at us, guys! Didn't think we'd be here today.
Yeah, and I agree with John Walls. I think Garrett will be fine. I think Zeke at corner I think Zeke will probably stick at corner at this point. And Jair Hill, I think he'll, you still have him, and I think they're really going to be aggressive in the portal, going after some a starting corner to really fortify that position.
You need 3 at least, and that's they didn't use Jeremiah Smith that way, but they could next year. And I don't like the idea going in with. I do like the idea of Zeke Berry at corner. I think they didn't notice it until they had to. But they put Zeke outside and they put Kari at nickel, and it worked. And Makari Page's tackling wasn't coming around until this game, and then it was there. And there were a couple plays that are coming out on film where he was not just the ones you recognize, and not just the interception and the PBU that were huge plays as well, but that position. I don't think we appreciated enough because it started with Dax, and then it went right into Mikey Samers to play that position, and probably how much Rod Moore meant to them, and how they expect. And I'm guessing that was where they were expecting to use him this year, and that was a big loss. And Zeke Berry, I think he's a good player. He's a very athletic player. He can move. And I think corner, once he really gets everything else down, he's going to be a good cornerback. But nickel was probably just too much to put on him when everyone else on the defense is that new. And Makari Page has been in that defense so long, he was a perfect guy for it. And like Eureka, like that made them so much better. And when you ask what happened to Michigan when they were competitive against Indiana, and they were competitive in the second half against Oregon, and they were competitive against Ohio State, Makari Page went to nickel.
Well, there is some, to the extent there is noise about Rod Moore, the noise is that he'll be back.
Yeah.
So,
that is what Earls said
yeah.
to the person that we're on the radio with.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the noise, I guess.
That's the talk. He wants to, from what I understand, was obviously monitoring what his draft situation is as far and rehab and how that relates to combine readiness or preparing for it and that kind of thing. But there are definite conversations about him returning, serious ones. So I don't want to get too ahead of things. I don't think anything definitive has been determined, but I put it this way. I feel more optimistic about it now than I did, say, heading into the season.
Yeah, isn't the big spot in the portal, though, aside from quarterback, center? Isn't center and aren't center
line, you mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Offensive line, but at least that position, it seems to me. And
especially with Sharon. I think we got into this, and I know we got to get to a break. I can see Ira without even seeing Ira saying break. There are. If you go to the league, they'll tell you left tackle. I got to have a left tackle first. You go to college, and there's a split. Some coaches say left tackle is the most important. Some coaches say center is the most important. And I think Sharon is one of those coaches who thinks center is the most important. So to your point, Craig, I would not be surprised. Now, I don't know that to be the case for sure. But based on the success that they had with Olu and with Nugent and how crucial they were, I would not be surprised if what you're saying is the case. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that.
And
So,
they do
I
need
don't
a
know. I'm just guessing.
yeah, I mean, it's just a guess for me too, but they do also need a quarterback, right? They need someone to grease the skids or to grease the path
Well,
to
that's for
the-
sure.
yeah.
That's a no doubter. That conversation, and I think we've talked about that here before, haven't we? That was part of the
Maybe, I don't know.
conversation during the entire Bryce recruitment. Part of the conversation was recruiting a portal quarterback, and they were, Bryce and his dad, they were like, okay, we're good with that. And, thought process being, look, don't want to make it be, it's all on you, and it's got to be you. Now, Bryce, he wants that kind of responsibility, but I think Sharon's point is, hey, want you to compete. And if you're the guy, great. If you're not the guy, there's someone you can learn from. And they say that's a great way to look at it. So they're on board with it. And now you just got to find a portal guy that is willing to, whether it's probably a guy who has one more year left. Are you willing to come in and compete with the #1 player in the country? How many guys are going to be willing to do that? I'm sure there are some that are going to be willing.
It's probably not Cade.
I would bet everything I have that it is not Cade McNamara.
Well, I had several emails this morning already about, well, isn't Michigan going to go back and get Cade? And I said, you got to be kidding me. That was my response.
There's no way.
I mean,
there's no
the
way.
opportunity to mentor a younger quarterback, Cade. Come on.
Well, so the thing is that like Miller Moss was like apparently deciding between Auburn, who I think has a line on some other quarterback, and like Iowa and Michigan and maybe Louisville. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I like that field.
Doesn't really sound like a field that Michigan can't beat out there. So like I would put him as the odds-on favorite as a quarterback in the portal. You're probably getting Donovan McCulley at wide receiver. Probably need to try to get Tyler Morris back. But we haven't really talked about offensive coordinator names here.
Yeah.
Like,
take a pause. Let's take a pause. Let's take this break right here. And then we'll come back on the other side and pick that up with more MGoBlog Roundtable. Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA. Online at thebig1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
We're going to get through this whole podcast without talking about Michigan beating Wisconsin at the Troll Center.
That I mean, to see those two big guys play together is just art. I mean, it was, this guy, Wolf, he might be an NBA player like yesterday. That's my fear. And
let's give him like 2 games before we decide that.
Yeah, I know, but he's a 7-foot guy who can handle the ball and pass and play defense and check small guys. I don't know.
We got to wait to see whether that's a John Tanji thing, who is a guy who was at Colorado State for most of his career, and not like an NBA wing thing. Because I think that was a good matchup for Michigan when they made that switch, but I'm not sure that that's the guy that finally proves that he can switch 1 through 4.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And but it sure was impressive. People, I had a lot of conversation with folks saying this sure was an ugly game, and I kept saying, oh no, this game was beautiful. This was a beautiful game, showing how the homily of defense travels is really true. And I mean, they played some wonderful defense against a really good team, and so
and their 7th guy played only 8 minutes, and I'm sure when I saw that box score, I was like, Craig is gonna sing hallelujahs.
Well, yeah, I mean they're contracting the floor a bit in terms of who they're playing, and
I think
that was inevitable.
Yeah,
but Sure is interesting. And, I'm going to talk up Ira will be happy. I'll talk up the women's team because they're fun. I've been to a couple games. They're just fun to watch. And I usually don't say that about any, any women's basketball game. But this team really has something. So it'd be an interesting year on both sides.
Back in about 90 seconds. And you're right, Craig. The ladies are fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, shout out to Akeem Misdean because he assisted in that Nate Marshall.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw that he was
Really?
he was involved. Yeah, because he has some school connection or something.
Yeah, he's the family. He's real close with Nate Marshall's family.
Okay.
Isn't he like have a brother? Isn't he a brother-in-law or sister-in-law or some?
I can't remember what I can't remember exactly what the family tie is, but I know Akeem. I know Akeem was a part of it when he was here on the visit, and I know Akeem was a part of it right before he flipped.
Well, it's extremely
and went out and coached against Wisconsin right after that. So he's calling. Akeem is placing the call to Nate Marshall. Then he's going out on the court to coach.
Back in 20, guys.
It didn't quite work just like that, but I just know Akeem was calling me.
He's an exceedingly personable guy, incidentally, off the charts in personality.
Yeah.
Stand by, guys. Coming back. Back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. The Big 1050 is where we are, is who we are. The Big1050.com. And listen, folks, if you're on the market for a new vehicle, you should get on board with Brighton Ford. Go to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD to make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. That's where John Cuter and his crew will take great care of you with great deals like the one on the 2024 Ford Bronco Sport Big Ben. Get into one of those for $214 a month, $3,500 down, or $341 a month with $500 down. Or how about the 2025 Ford Explorer Active, $303 a month, $3,500 down, or $460 a month with $500 down. And last but not least, the 2024 Ford F-150 XLT, $261 a month, $3,500 down, or $390 a month with $500 down. For those and other great deals, get on board with Brighton Ford by going to BrightonFord.com. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD and make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. And so, Brian, before we went to the break, you mentioned a move that come on, you knew it was on the horizon, that it was likely that Sharon was going to be moving on as far as the offensive coordinator position was concerned. And so it was just a matter of when he decided to do it before the bowl game, parting ways with Kirk Campbell a couple of days ago now, and charting a new course for whoever his next OC/quarterbacks coach is going to be. And so, your thoughts, and you were talking about names.
Well, I mean, a couple of names that have come up are Joe Craddock, who's currently the offensive coordinator at Tulane. Considerably improved their offense this year, despite having, I believe, a redshirt freshman quarterback. Before that, he was the offensive coordinator at Troy. Inherited a dumpster fire, something like 117th in SP Plus. His first year, they only got to 114 because sometimes these are 2-year projects. But in year 2, they were 42nd. So that seems like a pretty good recall job. Before that, he was the tight ends coach at UAB because he was Chad Morris's offensive coordinator for 5 years at SMU and Arkansas. And there, Chad Morris is an offensive guy doing offensive things. So you're not really sure how much of that is Craddock and how much of that is Chad Morris. So has a pretty good last few years, relatively young, just 39. The other name that's come up some is Dan Mullen, former Mississippi State and Florida head coach, a guy who knows what to do with a quarterback who can run a bit. Has been on TV for 3 years though, so you wonder if he's got that dog in him. Never a good recruiter, and I guess Michigan is in a position where they can probably let that happen. I mean, Wink Martindale isn't out there on the trail very much. So, but with NIL these days and a fleet of guys who you can recruit with, who are part of Sean McGee's crew, like maybe that's not as much of a big deal anymore. But I don't necessarily. I mean, what names have you heard, Sam?
Well,
Sounds like you don't want to tell us.
I think no, it's not true. I mean, I think Craddock is an interesting name to look at, but I'm digging into some guys. I don't think that he is looking exclusively in college. I think there's, you're looking really heavy at guys who have a track record for developing quarterbacks. I mean, you gotta figure that their ability to develop Bryce Underwood is going to be part of the thought process here. Scheming, of course, but quarterback QB development. So what do you have on your resume as far as that's concerned? I think is going to be high on the list or can move you higher on the list. So I would look there. And that's what I'm looking at as I talk to different agents in the program. So that's what I'm kind of checking out right now. I don't want to just mention names that I haven't vetted. That's why I'm hesitant, because if I say a name, then it's like, well, that's a guy. When I think a guy is intriguing, I'm gonna ask an agent about it. That's one. So like I see some names here. Someone said Brian Greasy. I don't know, like right here. So let's talk about these two names. Someone mentioned in the chat, Greasy and Leftwich. So Brian is intriguing because of the natural ties in QB development. The thing there is he hasn't coordinated. So I don't know how that would play in the criteria, right? And his tenure in coaching. I don't know how that would play for Sharon. Leftwich has coordinated and has coached a great deal. Now he's not coaching right now. So how would that play? So these are the kinds of things that I gotta make some calls about. So, but these are two guys that I'm gonna be asking about just to give you an idea of how I do it. Like, I got some names. I'm gonna be calling some agents, calling some coaches, checking on the inside. So that's kind of where I am right now.
I mean, there's been some noise about I can't think of his name. This Ben Johnson's young coach, who's worked with him with the Lions, and that name has been out there, but I've forgotten it. I mean, if you want a quarterback developer, I'm a little hesitant to say this, but there's one very obvious person sitting out there, but I don't know how plausible that is. Since he's
you think Bryce Underwood has to return the favor? That Tom got Bryce to come here, and now Bryce has got to turn around and be like, "Okay, I came. How about you, Tom?"
And yeah, so I don't know. What about, is Joe Moorhead still around? Is that his name?
I mean, Moorhead's. So another guy that people were mentioning is Jason Candle, who's the head coach at Toledo.
Toledo, yeah.
And like Moorhead is currently the head coach at Akron, but that's going
nowhere,
really badly.
Yeah.
So he managed to get up to 4-8 this year.
This
Moorhead would be interesting because I think there is some familiarity, as far as what they do. So I'm not saying that there would be some familiarity with Sharon, but there's some familiarity with what they do. There's some interconnection, some interwovenness between Gaddis would be a mutual sort of guy between them. So, but I don't know what he
Gaddis is available too.
I don't know that he would look if he were going to go hire a guy in the MAC, I think I think Candle is intriguing. He's intriguing to me.
I think the choice, I'm not going to criticize the choice to terminate Kirk Campbell, but I don't know, given the fact they had no quarterback really, no offensive line at all, he was sort of in, let me put it this way, not the world's best situation. And I know that there's going to be some criticisms of the things he did, but man, he was playing a very difficult hand, and
That's true.
and he came out of there. His comments, out the door were quite thoughtful and kind, truly smart for himself, but also, I'm giving
I don't
him
think anyone's going to
credit.
hate Kirk Campbell. I know
hardly.
Yeah, no, he was.
I
He
mean,
was brought in to be a quarterbacks coach and got promoted because everyone was moving on.
Yeah.
the thing about Candle is he's been a head coach at Toledo for a decade now, just under. So like he's in the range where it's like, does he want to be the OC at Michigan, or does he have a good shot at the Purdue job? Or like the kind of crappy thing for him is that Purdue looks like it's going to be the only Big Ten job that opens this year. And he's coming off a 7-5 year, but like I think you know what you're getting with Jason Candle. Like good MAC coach, tends to have good passing offenses. Hasn't really put together a defense that gets them out of the slog. Has an occasional very good year. So, with him, like, I'd be interested to talk to him, and I'm sure that Michigan can increase his salary because that's the way the world works these days. But
yeah, he's caught in a spot. Like there have been his name has been mentioned in several coaching searches, but he hasn't gotten that big step up. He hasn't gotten that big opportunity. And so are you ever going to get that shot being Toledo's head coach? Might your opportunity for the big time come from being a coordinator? You have a better shot at it anyway, come from being a coordinator at a big time Power 4 program like Michigan.
Yeah, especially because your statistical improvement is baked in right now, right? Like any mook could walk into this job, and the upgraded talent at quarterback will make you look like a genius. So this is an opening for someone who might have some ambition.
Yeah,
it is, but I think that one of the downsides of the Harbaugh era is, we went to every single offseason not knowing who the coaching staff is going to be. And, one of the things that you're supposed to get by moving on to Sharon is it'd be great to have some long-term continuity where, like, okay, we're doing this together. I was hopeful that, as soon as he was in the market and he had like an offseason to go and look and get his guy, that, like, he's a Stoops guy and he's plugged into that whole coaching tree. And that's you got an opportunity with Bryce Underwood that, like, okay, I want you to come in. You have to, and you're going to be here for Bryce Underwood's career. And when that's over, you're going to have the quarterback that you recruited to be after Bryce Underwood, and you're going to have the offensive line that you put together here. And then I want your legacy to be the offensive coordinator at Michigan.
But before we go, how about this one? And I'll throw this at you. Craig. And I'm lost the name, but someone wanted to know, Craig, what about your man?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, he is the best quarterbacks coach in the country, and not just because he's my friend. Ask Tom Brady. Ask Tom Brady, who's the best quarterbacks coach around. It's Scott Loeffler. Now, I haven't talked to him about this. I haven't, I have no idea what his interest is. I know he's happy at Bowling Green. I know that he and the AD get along really well there. And it's a good situation for him where he is right now. So I don't know. And I have no insight, none on this one. I've thought about calling him.
Yeah.
But he has been an OC before. at Auburn, at Temple, at BC. So he has experience in the job, and he is Tom Brady, best quarterbacks coach there is. So, I don't know. But yeah, it's certainly a thought.
Yeah, I knew that question was going to come up. Who better to ask than Craig Ross?
I mean,
right?
his career as an offensive coordinator, I like him better as a MAC head coach than I think as an offensive coordinator. I remember him as an offensive coordinator. I was not.
He may
looking
like
like a
himself
Michigan guy.
better as a MAC head coach. I don't know. I can't. I don't.
I mean, as a head,
pry on the-
I've followed his coaching career. He hired a bunch of Michigan guys and basically reinstalled Lloyd Carr's program in the MAC. And, it's a tough era to get guys and develop them. But if he can get that going, I think that they could be competitive and have a program that they're proud of that is interesting, because so many teams right now are just getting the next guy in the portal and planning on anyone being good leaving. That if you can build a program on the principle of like everyone come here and stay, that'd be something. I don't know if he can pull it off, but it'd be something.
Well, yeah, he had a good year this year. They kicked the crap out of Toledo, incidentally. They should have beaten Penn State. They were down 3 points late in the game and inside of the red zone, and had a pointless and unforced turnover. Same thing at Texas A&M. Came within a couple seconds of beating Texas A&M this year.
Those wins would be so nice to have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know. But so he did have a very, very good season. One thing, my wife just put a note in front of me and said that there's a watch along. You got one, I think Friday, with Brian and Alex Strain and David Nasternak. I think they're doing a hockey watch along on Friday night. She said, "Don't remember to tell people that." So.
Yeah, I'm even doing this, and I didn't remember.
Yeah, so
there we go.
And so Sue remembered, and she said, "Hey, you got to mention this." So.
You can tell how much Brian loves doing these.
I like doing it. It's been a little busy.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Anyway,
hockey watch along, folks. All right, fellas. Appreciate you as always. Another great MGoBlog Roundtable. We'll see you next week. Or we'll see you tomorrow. Here on the Michigan Insider of the Big 1050 WTKA online.